You know what I just heard?
What?
Costa Rica has the reputation of being the happiest country on earth.
But it gets better.
This Week in Costa Rica brings you the best information.
The best.
From the people who understand why so many choose to call this beautiful place home. Bringing you the latest information from expats, experts, and people just like you who chose to escape, retire, and live in Costa Rica. This Week in Costa Rica. Pura Vida.
Welcome back to This Week in Costa Rica. Thanks for sticking around, guys. Always appreciate it. I'm really excited to have here in studio today my very special guest, Shannon Enete, who has really one of the most incredible guidebooks, I think, to becoming an expat. And that is what is entitled, Becoming an Expat in Costa Rica. How are you, Shannon?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
This is really great to have you here in studio. We spoke, I don't know, maybe about a year ago online, I think, via Skype, yeah?
Yes, we did.
How are the book sales been going?
They're going great. Very ambitious about the project. And I think as I have more and more titles and countries adding to the series, it's just going to sort of explode from there.
Yeah, because this particular book is not your only outing.
That's correct. In this guidebook series, Costa Rica is the first one to hit the stores. Ecuador will be following this year in June, late June. I'm aiming for solstice on that one.
Okay.
And I'm writing that one as well. And then I have other authors writing the Mexican edition, Panamanian edition, Belize, Panama, Brazil, Thailand, and Malaysia.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
So the first thing I have to ask is how are you recruiting these authors? Where are you finding these folks?
You know, there's a variety of different outlets. Basically, I mean, I start with anything as basic as Craigslist, and then I go through different job offering sites, writer guidebook, travel sites. There's a lot of different venues for travel writers, and so I'm hitting a variety of those. But I don't want one experience level. I want to invite everyone because the type of book that this is one that's so diverse. You need to pull from a variety of different backgrounds. So that's why I went as far as Craigslist. I'm looking for anyone and everyone, and then I'm going through the file and I'm finding the person I need has to have the right humor, and they have to be able to be personable and talk with a lot of expats, because a lot of the book is experience stories, from interviews with expats. And it's a lot of real life stuff. It's not just, hey, sprinkled with, what destination is best for you and what's the prettiest place to live.
Sure, because look, I have on my iPad here, Becoming an Expat, because, I've really enjoyed that level of personality that you're bringing to the story. And that's what a lot of people really enjoy. It's the same here with the radio program. There are people who are, looking for basic information about Costa Rica, and that can be found just about anywhere with a good Google search and a little bit of vetting. But it's the stories that people want to hear. It's the personality behind it, because when we're talking about expatriation, what we're really talking about is that fear level that people have to overcome. Not only am I going to have to confront a new country and a new setting and a new culture, but I think a lot of these good authors really speak to how we have to confront elements of ourselves in this process.
Absolutely.
So I'm assuming this is really what you're looking for in your writers is the sense of personality, but the relatability as well that we can find in them.
Yes, and also the way they can present material. Like, I want them to be creative, because there is a large amount of information one has to learn when they're going to move abroad, things they'll never consider unless they've actually done it. And so I want them to bring that information in a way that is entertaining and fun. You can have a textbook that's full of stuff to teach you to be a doctor, but then are you ever going to read it? And same goes for guidebooks to teach you to move abroad, because it's massive, the learning that has to be undergone.
Sure. And there's certain things I'm sure that you really can't express very well in writing. There's certain things that you just have to experience, and I can well imagine that the process of putting this together has got to be pretty daunting.
It is. The very first one, the Costa Rica one, is the one that I developed the skeleton. That's going to be the model for all of the books. And so that was definitely a very large process. But as far as the material hitting the streets, feet on the ground, the reason I put in so many expat experience stories and tips is I believe it makes the gap between just knowledge of rules and immigration procedure and how to use healthcare and how it plays out in real life.
Right.
So that's how I create this well-rounded sort of package for people that I really hope helps.
I think that's what's happening here again. People come to, for example, this radio program because they're looking for the difference between in theory and in practice. And I think the rate of expatriates who end up returning to, for example, the United States is almost astounding. As I understand it, almost as many as 80% within the first 2 years of moving to a place like Costa Rica go back to the United States. largely because I think they came down maybe with unrealistic expectations, but also maybe it's possible that what they were doing in terms of their research was incomplete. Maybe they didn't have a really good picture, and it seems like becoming an expat is really speaking to those individuals to make sure they do have at least as much of a complete picture as possible without experiencing it in the flesh. But at the end of the day, we all know, I mean, you have to do it. You have to come down and see it for yourself.
Absolutely. And throughout the book, throughout the sections, it talks about taking an exploratory trip. You need to go and experience it, give yourself 3 months off and, 6 months if you can, before you say, I'm moving to Costa Rica. And you say, I'm going to explore the option of moving to Costa Rica, and I'm going to follow the different options the book says to go through.
Right.
What am I looking for? And sometimes you don't know what you want. The hardest thing for you to figure out, what do I want in my dream house? I have no idea. And I actually talk about that process and how to figure that out for yourself. So it's, the amount of levels that goes through to figure out happiness in life and happiness in retirement, golden years, alternative lifestyle. I sort of approach all of those in different sections of the book.
I think that's an interesting point, because I know a lot of expats when they move abroad, we see, and I kind of loosely categorize some individuals as what I call the grumpy gringo down here. The old man, the conservative who moved down from the United States because he or she didn't like the way things were going there. They're running from Obamacare, I don't know what. And they come down here and they put on their Crocs and they have their big socks on and they go down to the beach and they bitch about everything here as much as they did in the United States. And then they tend to outwardly project that onto Costa Rica and say, look, the problem isn't me. The problem's Costa Rica. This country is a total mess. Whereas I see, again, the opposite end of the spectrum, people who are coming down to Costa Rica with an open heart, with an open mind, and saying, I'm going to try and find something within this country that reflects an aspect of myself and my personality. And it works really well from them. And they find that Costa Rica is a paradise.
Right.
Are you finding yourself somewhere in between, or are you on either end of that spectrum right now?
Personally?
Yeah.
It depends on the day. I really strive to accept and enjoy every part of this country. And on good days, I am on, cloud 9, and I'm like, oh my God, this place is so gorgeous. I go on hikes up at the hill here, right from my house, and I see blue morpho butterflies and monkeys, and I'm like, I'm in a wonderland. This is amazing. And then there's other days where, I'm walking the streets with my wife and she's just getting these looks like she's a piece of meat. And I'm just like, machismo, like it drives me nuts, and you just, that's how it is. And you either have to be okay with it or find a process to be okay with it, or it might not be a good fit because you can't bend in that one area.
I think it's fair to say too, I mean, there are a lot of individuals, and again, I'm painting things with pretty blanket generalizations, but I know a lot of folks who come down here on a personal level, who are, somewhat uncomfortable with the culture. They're somewhat uncomfortable with the way things are done, or in many cases, the way things aren't done here in Costa Rica. And, they think that there needs to be some sort of a change that happens. It's almost like an imposition of their culture, of their society on Costa Rica, thinking that, not coming from maybe this position of moral superiority to Costa Rica, but more coming down here and feeling like, I don't know why they don't do things the way we do them back in Canada or the United States, without stopping to recognize that, very few Costa Ricans in inverse would go up to the United States, wander around the country and go, I don't know why they don't do things like they do in Costa Rica here. When you think of it from that perspective, it's kind of absurd. So, not to get off on a tangent, but that really is the case, I think, for a lot of individuals who are coming down here and not finding that success. Not only lack of preparation, but coming down with just unrealistic expectations of what they're going to be able to change in the culture they're living in.
Yeah, and a lot of the things that they're looking at, blogs, websites, magazines, books, it sells a dream, and it sells it well. It's very romanticized. And so that can be frustrating because they have this idea, this imagery in their head. This is exactly what my life's going to be like, before they get there and before they actually know the country. And most of those literatures are selling something, that's difficult. If they're selling real estate or they're selling a tour, to familiarization tour for people moving abroad. And I tried to avoid that. There are obvious areas where I have a passion that I enjoy Costa Rica, and it'll come out in my writing, but then I also show the things that are harder to deal with that some people may not enjoy. And so the goal of the book series was to keep it really honest. And so, the only thing I'm selling is a book, and I really hope it helps people. And I tell people, I want this book to either take you away or towards Costa Rica. Like, I really want to help that decision-making process, because I hate to see the people here where they're not happy, they spent a lot of money, or they're really financially invested, and they might be stuck in a situation where they need to sell in order to, move on to another place where they might be better suited.
Sure. I mean, in a lot of cases, I recommend people just stay in Florida, honestly, because, if you're not ready to accept what it's going to be here, then you're going to get yourself into a lot of hot water. But I think, you recommended earlier, as we've often done in this show, is that coming down on exploratory trips for long periods of time, if you're financially able to do so. And we also really recommend that you look at different regions of Costa Rica that might better suit your needs. As we know, 5 very distinct provinces and very distinct regions. I mean, even from, here in Jaco to an hour away is a completely different country in many respects. So we always recommend people come down. It's like, if you're a beach person, try some of the beach communities and see, do the amenities fit your need? Is the beach to your liking? Are you going to be able to integrate within that culture, that society? For here in Jaco, as an example, it's a lot easier for a lot of expats to kind of acclimate into this because it's a little bit more Americanized. It's a little more Southern California here, intentionally so. Whereas, just down the road where you used to live in Bejuco, it's a completely different place, even though it's only, an hour and a half away or so.
Oh, it's only about 35 minutes. Yeah, it's really close.
Completely different country.
Right. Empty beach. Here, not so much.
Now, did you guys move directly to the beach, or did you spend any time in the Central Valley area at all?
We moved to the beach after we were at the beach for about a year and a half, and that's actually where we met. So we didn't move there together collectively.
Okay.
But I actually, I rented the condo her mom rented out. She was my property manager, and that's how I met my wife.
I see. Okay, fair enough.
Yes. But we decided we wanted to try out other parts of Costa Rica. So we moved to Nuevo Arenal and lived in that little town for only about a month. It was beautiful. The lake is absolutely fabulous. I wish there was more hiking around the lake, but you know what? Costa Rica is not developed, and that's part of the beauty. So it's one of those things where you're like, I wish, but it's great.
Yep, absolutely.
And then San Ramon, tried out that area for a short bit of time, as well as Montezuma. I had trouble finding housing in Montezuma. It's mostly just hotels.
Exactly. Or Montefuma, as they like to call it. Sure.
Yes.
I think it's got something like the highest UFO sightings per capita of any place in the world.
Really?
There's a little fact for you.
I didn't know that.
Okay. We're going to have to take a little bit of a break here. We are speaking with Shannon Enete, who is the author of Becoming an Expat in Costa Rica, amongst other great books, which we will get to right after this commercial break. You are listening to This Week in Costa Rica, only on the Overseas Radio Network.
So you want to jump out your